Mike and Tom are registered with Stewart Partners Global Advisory LLC.
Common Sense Finance with Mike Wiginton and Tom Farrell of HL Wiginton Capital Management, an independent investment and financial planning firm in downtown Jasper. Mike is a chartered financial analyst charter holder, and Tom is a certified financial planner professional. They are here to discuss and give their thoughts on current financial and economic matters. Now, with Common Sense Finance, here are Mike and Tom.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another edition of Common Sense Finance. This is Tom Farrell, I'm Mike Wiginton, and today's topic at hand, we're going to entitle it, A Correction is a Joke, okay? So I'll start it out like this, just so we're all good on the terminology. So it's always been referred to as when a market or an index is off 10% from its recent high, that's been referred to as a correction. Once that index or market is off 20% from its recent high, then that's referred to as a bear market, okay? So there's a lot of things going on. We're going to talk about the headline number and how the reality of the might be a whole lot worse than the headline number when it comes to stock performance. You want to take it from there?
Yeah, and depending on what area of the market you're looking at, some areas have fared a lot worse than others. But if you look at the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, which is kind of two of the main indexes that people look at to see, how the market's doing, the S&P 500 is at this point, I don't know if you mentioned today is the 24th of February, is down a little over 12%, maybe even close to 13% now from its highs. Actually, that's a year-to-date number, so that's pretty close to where the high was. But if you look a little bit deeper, you see that half of all the stocks in the S&P 500 are down at least 20%. And if you dig a little bit deeper, the same thing is true for the NASDAQ. You've got 80% of the stocks listed on the NASDAQ, and there are roughly 3,300 stocks listed on the NASDAQ that are down over 20%, and nearly half of the stocks listed on NASDAQ are down over 50%. So you look at the headline index, and it these tell a little bit different story. There's a pretty good downward pressure going on in a lot of stocks right now.
And you have some ideas about why that is?
About why some of these stocks are down more than others?
Well, about why that divergence, because we talked about it before. So let's take the S&P for example, and we talked about how the top five, on the way up, the top five companies, really represented the bulk of the return in the market. And so what's happened, at least until recently, those top five companies, because, and we're not going to get into the math on this, but the S&P 500 is market cap weighted. Okay. So let me give this a shot.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let me give this a shot. So let's just say that we get five folks together, and we're going to make decisions about something. Maybe it's a business. We get five folks together. All right. On one hand, if we all have equal votes, then with five of us, we each have a 20% say so. Our one vote counts for 20%. Mm-hmm. But let's just say that we get the same five folks together, and they all come from, different, financial means, as might often be the case. And we said instead everybody's going to have an equal vote or 20% vote, the person with the largest stock portfolio is going to have more of a say. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add it all everybody's stock portfolio up, and you'll get the percentage that your portfolio, your weighted average. Yeah. That's your proportion.
Your proportion.
That's right. Yeah. So if somebody's got, one person's stock portfolio is 50% of the total, then they're going to have a 50. That one person out of the five is going to have a 50% say. Yeah. That's market cap weighted. That's how the S&P 500 is reacting, that you've got the top five that are dominating because it's market cap weighted. Mm-hmm. Was that a good enough example?
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to equally weighted.
Right.
And so they've really been buffered, and maybe until recently, and so you've got a lot of these stocks that don't have as much say-so that are down a whole lot more, and these top five have not been beat up as much. That may be changing soon, but they've not been beat up as much. That's why your headline number doesn't look as bad as the the reality that you speak of.
And obviously it depends on what you're holding, but we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, how a handful of stocks have basically driven the stock market up. If you're looking at the indexes over the last couple of years, and typically that when that happens, you're going to have a lot of stocks that are maybe done mediocre or whatever, but they're not keeping up pace with those handful of stocks that are driving the market. So digging a little bit deeper, we have a correction going on. We've got a conflict with Russia and Ukraine. All that's going on, I think, is driving some of this. But regardless, if you, like I said earlier, if you look under the hood and see, you get a bigger picture of what really is going on.
We've talked, a similar, conceptually similar sort of thing is we talked about inflation recently, and how if you look at the headline numbers, it really is not in line with what real life people are experiencing. In fact, real life people, if you talk about what they're spending their money on and how inflation's affected them, it's actually worse than the headline number. And it's the same sort of thing. So if you just own the S&P 500, well, that is what it is. But if you own a variety of other instruments in the stock market and other positions and so forth, you very well may have experienced a whole lot worse situation or performance rather than as you say, the headline number would suggest.
Yeah, and out of the 11 sectors in the S&P 500, there's only one sector that is positive for the year, and it's positive by a good bit, is the energy sector. All other sectors are negative, some of them a lot more than others. I mean, if you look at consumer discretionary, which is, Etsy, I'm sure people have heard of that, it's down 46%, Tesla down 27%, Home Depot's down 25%. So it's not just technology that's getting.
And those numbers are as of when?
As of yesterday's close.
Okay,
yeah.
Good deal.
So
it's fairly broad based.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add?
That's it.
We'll leave it there. We'll see you next time.
Belly 21, hot thing, looking for big fun, hot thing, what's your fantasy, hot thing, do you wanna play with me?